That was Vissi from Act 2 of Puccini's Tosca. And it's by no means the kind of music we instinctively associate with the singer. Because however unfair it may be to the Italian works in her repertoire, there's no doubt that she's known throughout the world, chiefly in her roles of Wagner and Richard Strauss. Supreme as Brunhilde, Isolde and Electra, she now stands as successor to Kirsten Flagstad on that pinnacle where there never seems to be room for more than one soprano at a time. She's Birgit Nilsson. Well, we might as well start at the beginning. Was there music in your family when you were a child? Did you become of a musical family yourself?
No, not really. My mother had a very good voice and she sang very beautifully, but she was just an amateur. But she had a very clear, very high voice, and I'm sure if she would have, you know, continued to study and take lessons, she would maybe have become a singer too. But my father and all his 9 sisters and brothers, they cannot sing a note.
When did you first realize that you had a rather special voice? Did you have music lessons automatically?
I know, I sang before I could walk. They told me I walked very late. I was rather heavy, you know? And I sang and I spoke very early. So I started to sing when I was 1 year old, and they said I sang rather well. And my father always had me to sing when we had guests and parties, and we had a lot of people coming to our house, and my father always said, now you must sing. And sometimes I was singing 6, 7, 8 hours a day, you know, and they said, you are killing the girl because, you know, she will ruin her vocal cords. But finally I think it made it, instead of ruining them, it made them strong. But then my parents, they thought I should, you know, be a little bit practical girl. I should take over the farm, I should marry a farmer, and so forth and so forth. So they sent me to a school where I had to cook, learn to cook and to bake and wave and all those things. And my father, he enjoyed it as long as I was singing at home for him and his friends. But when I started to want to become a singer, then he said, no, no, no.
When did you first hear a professional performance in an opera house or a concert hall?
The first time when I heard an opera was when I came to Stockholm and made an audition for the Musical Academy. And the first opera was an awful opera. It was called Lips by Kreuther. It was a terrible thing, and I didn't like it at all. But my second opera was Tannhäuser, and I fell in love with Tannhäuser. So I went to every Tannhäuser performance the season.
Then at what point did you settle down to full-time study to be a professional singer?
Well, I studied once a week, half a year, and then I went to Stockholm and made the audition. We were 48 who made the audition, and only 2 places were free, and I came in as number 1. And when I made the audition, I just ran out. I remember, that was, I thought all the other 48 was so much better, and everyone has been studying in Italy, in France, and all over, and I haven't, it was the first time I was in Stockholm even, so I thought, that's absolutely no idea, and I felt absolutely awful. And when I went out, I just crossed the street and ran, and after me was somebody screaming, Miss Nilsson, Miss Nilsson. So I turned around, and there were 2 of the jury in the, you know, who were sitting and listening to me in the audition, coming after me. One was the stage director, and one was an opera conductor in Sweden, and they said, who are you who sings, so who are singing like that? When I think back on my life, that it was my most happy day in all my life. I thought it was absolutely unbelievable. I would never have believed that would have been true, because I thought I will really try to make an audition, and if I don't succeed, I will take a job in Stockholm. I will not come home and take the shame of all my friends and colleagues who will laugh.
And then your first teacher, who was he?
That was Joseph Hislop. And he thought I was a very, you know, a girl very sure of myself, and I came from the country, and I was very sure of myself, he thought, and everything, and he was very wrong at the time, but maybe I looked that way. So he said to me, the first lessons, he said, well, Birgit, you have a very good material, you have a very good voice, but, you know, I don't know if you have anything there. He said, well, I said, it's you have to find out. That's what I mean, Birgit, they said. You know, you have a voice, but if you cannot use it, if you don't have the brain, forget it. And believe me, Birgit, it is absolutely not for farmers to become a singer. And I went home, and I thought, oh, is this the way my new life has to start? That's terrible. And then we found each other, and he maybe thought that, he said that I had made a big mistake, Birgit. You are not so stupid as I thought. And so we went along.
What were your first professional engagements?
I was down in South Sweden singing a concert in Madre, and I got a telephone call from Stockholm that the singer who was singing Agathe in the French, she was sick, and if I could take over the role in 3 days. And I thought, this is my only chance. I can't say no. I must say yes. And I didn't know how, but I said yes. And I took a train up in the night, and I was too poor. I couldn't, you know, take a sleeper, so I was, you know, sleeping on a bench. And I went directly to the rehearsal of the Freischütz, and I wasn't very much prepared. And the great Leo Blesch was there, and I did a few mistakes, and he got so angry with me. And he said, you are musical, you're in musical, I cannot use you. You have to sing the... So I said, well, I expected at least to have 14 days to prepare myself for the first role. I mean, I just came up and said, oh, it doesn't matter. You are musical, I cannot have you tomorrow. And I started crying. I have no handkerchief, and I got a handkerchief from the stage director, and I was crying and singing and rehearsing. And the next day, I sang the role. But I was so nervous. I remember, you know, when the curtain goes up, she's sitting there and embroidering her something for her wedding, you know, sheath or something, big thing, you know, and my left knee, I have bent it in a certain way, so the left knee started trembling like this, and the whole white thing which I was, you know, embroidering, trembled along, you know. I trembled along that aria, I know. Then my second role was a Lady Macbeth with Fritz Busch.
It's rare, I think, for a singer to start with roles like that. After all, usually the pattern is tiny roles, walk on parts, even if not the chorus.
Yes.
So your second role to be Lady Macbeth, it's a considerable...
it's too much,
it's a major role, isn't
yes,
it?
of course. I wasn't ready for it.
You must have felt you weren't ready for it.
Oh, yes, of course. Well, no, I don't think I really felt that. At that time, you know, one knows everything.
Yes.
But I think, you know, other people, you know, vocally I could sing that role very good. But, you know, I didn't have any experience for that tremendous difficult role. Now I cannot understand how I really would dare to tackle that kind of role, but at that time I thought it was absolutely marvelous. And I remember I got very hurt because an older colleague came to me and said, Birgit, you are absolutely marvelous. I only wish you were 10 years older when you were sang that role. And I got very hurt. I said, what was wrong with that? I thought I was very good. But one gets a little bit more self-critic by the years. I got one role after each other, and as I mentioned, I started immediately with big roles, except for some Rhine maidens and Ring. And in secret I was singing the Brunhilde, because our Brunhilde didn't have the top notes, so it was too high for her. So I sang that Brunhilde already at 49. And at Götterdämmerung I was down in Rhine again, singing the Rhine Maiden. It was a quite a mixture.
That was your first ring then?
Right,
Yeah.
yes.
Well, now we must come to the question that we have to discuss in detail, because however many other roles you sing, and however unfair it may be, there's no doubt that the world regards you primarily as a Wagnerian singer. And of course you came to Wagner very early in your career, well, even before your career, of course, when you said you fell in love with Tannhäuser. Do you feel that this music, it certainly seems so to a listener, makes absolutely unique demands on you, that it is like no other music, that it's on a different plane altogether?
Oh yes, but any music to be performed well takes a lot of out of you. It doesn't matter whatever, you know, every composer has his difficulties, but you have to have a certain stamina for Wagner. But I think I was born with that. I felt very strong when I was singing, and when I started to take lessons, I felt really like some sort of a boxer or a wrestler or something like that. So it must have been in my nature. I was born with a certain abilities for Wagner, I think. But nevertheless, I really struggle to sing other roles too, and other composers, because I think it's good for the voice. One cannot, that's when nowadays, young singers, they start their career and they start with Wagner and they don't sing anything else but Wagner, and I don't think it's good for the voice, because other composers like Mozart or Verdi or anything, you keep the voice more flexible and you have more control of it.
Do you feel that Wagner, as well as being more demanding and more taxing for a singer, is also more satisfying, more rewarding?
Of course, but I don't think Brunhilde in Secret is very demanding or rewarding in a way. You know, the role is so static, and the trouble with Brunhilde in Secret is that she wakes up very late, and then she has to sing everything at once, you know. And if something goes wrong, there's no time to try to take her breath or something like. When she starts, she goes on, and the music extremely difficult to sing in a way, and there's no way to end it if you're not good, and there's not much you can do acting wise either. You have to express with very, very few movements, you know. She wakes up as a goddess, and she then gets some motherly feeling towards Siegfried, and then she ends as being in love with Siegfried. She has to express three kind of women without almost doing anything. She just stands there, and that's what I feel is also terribly difficult. I always is a little bit, you know, nervous about that Siegfried. I think more rewarding is Götterdämmerung, but that is incredibly interesting role to sing to and to act. So there's so much in it, you know, and you can express the things you like to express. In Siegfried, I just don't feel anything comes over, you know. It's maybe my fault, it's my head, but I feel like that.
One of the problems, of course, in singing a number of roles, a small number of roles, again and again, in different opera houses, and above all in different productions all over the world, is that you must by now have a very definite idea of your own, of the character, of the role, and yet you have to fit it into different productions. Now, doesn't this bring problems?
I remember the first time I sang Isolde in Bayreuth with Wieland Wagner. I sang it first with Wolfgang Wagner. The first time Isolde with Wieland Wagner, I think it was, I forgot, 60 or 62, I cannot remember. And he was a little bit suspicious because he thought I had been singing that role too much. So he wasn't sure he could get anything new out of me. So he And I thought I'm going to speak to him. So I said, Mr. Wagner, I said, I have been singing this role 84 times. Yes, I know. He thought I was going to say something else. I said, but I will forget all these 84 roles, and I will start from scratch. I will start from beginning like I didn't know anything. Oh, that's very nice. He still didn't believe me, and he was not too friendly to me. But we worked only a week, but that week was absolutely marvelous. And we got so good. We worked so good together. And he said, short before he died, that Tristan and Isolde he did, that was one of the closest to perfection he could come.
That ring has a story, I believe. Will you tell
Oh,
us?
yes, that ring. That is Isolde's picture, by the way. I think it was 1968. I got that ring from the public in Vienna. There are around between 300 and 400 people. And they gave that ring to me, and it's engraved even, you know. And it is, I think it is one of the most marvelous gifts I ever got, and I treasure it very, very much. And I don't sing one Isolde after then without that ring.
At the end of Tristan and Isolde, Tristan is dead, and King Mark has understood and pardoned Isolde's infidelity. But forgiveness has come too late. Isolde is now far beyond all earthly thoughts, and in this closing scene, the Liebestod, she pours out her rapture and joins her lover in death. Well, at least we've got your Liebestod on film now as well as music. Will you come back and sing the Brunhilde's Immolation for us?
Thank you. I would love to.
Well, let's stop talking about Wagner. It's not fair, really, because you also do sing the Italian repertoire. You sing Turandot, of course, but then that practically is a Wagnerian opera. What in your current repertoire is there from Italian opera?
Lady Macbeth, for instance. Tosca. Aida. And Paolo and Masca I haven't sung for a long time. I don't know why. It's just I lost it along the line, but I would love to do it sometimes again. That's the most, I think.
What did you sing at Glyndebourne when you came here?
Oh, that was, excuse me, that was a Mozart role, Elettra in Idomeneo.
Mm-hmm.
Very, very difficult role, I think, and it was beginning of my career. I tried to be very dramatic, and she has a very dramatic aria, and I was just, you know, almost throwing my dress off to express all my feelings, but I don't think I was very successful.
Of course, your generation of singers is the first that has been able to commit roles permanently through recordings under the best modern recording conditions, and of course you have recorded a large number of operas. How do you find the difference in techniques between recording and live performance? Do you enjoy recording?
No,
No?
I really don't. No, I don't think anybody does, really. No, I don't think so. You know, you are left to the technique, and they have to decide, you know, and you are singing and you are sweating blood and tears, and you really think you are doing a beautiful job, and then you come in the studio and listen to what you have done, and it's that and your high notes seems like a squeak from a mice, you know, and still I don't know. I really think, despite of stereo or whatever you say, I don't sometimes think the technique should, you know, develop a bit more, because as long as they say in a studio, when you sing a low note, take one step to the microphone, and when you sing a high note, go 3 steps back. That they did already in the beginning of 1900.
It must be strange to record a role, or even an aria from a role, that you've never sung on the stage. I think, for instance, you have never sung The Force of Destiny on stage.
Almost.
How almost?
You don't know that.
Okay.
May I tell it?
Please.
I was singing in Milan, La Scala, Turandot, of course, and the opera director from Zurich called me and asked me if I could come, you know, next week and sing. He spoke German to me, and he said, Macht des Schicksals. And all the time I thought it was Maskenball, Ballo and Maschera.
Yes.
You know, I mixed them up. And I said, of course, yes. And I said, well, it is the day before my Turandot in La Scala, but of course, you know, I came, and the day before the performance in Zurich, and I was going to try on the costumes. And they came with boots and pants and everything, and I said, what costumes are that? That's not a costume for Ballo and Maschera, for Amelia. Oh, not Amelia, Ballo and Maschera. No, you mean Leonora, of course. Sie meinen wohl Leonora, they said in their Swiss accent, you know. And all of a sudden, then I was aware I had, you know, mixed the roles up, and it was like a nightmare. I thought, no, I'm dreaming. And immediately I started to recall, how much do I know from that opera? I know the arias, and I have done one duet with the bass. That cannot be enough. I cannot learn it till tomorrow. So I gave up. But that was the closest I have been to.
What is it about The Force of Destiny arias that appeals to you?
Oh, I like the music. I love the music, and I like the arias. I don't know. I feel that they fit rather good to my voice, and it's maybe also because I never, up to now, got an opportunity to do it on stage. So in every concert, when I can, I sing either one or the other of those arias, you know. And so when we came to speak about this program, I wanted very much to do one of those Maskenball's arias. And I think they're so beautiful.
Not Maskenball, Forza del Destino.
There you see.
Yes, well, I can see how that terrible mistake occurred.
Oh, I'm still mixing them up. Isn't it awful?
Verdi's The Force of Destiny has one of the most complex plots in all opera. The heroine, Leonora, who has been cursed and cast out by her father, and who believes, wrongly as it turns out, that her lover is dead and that she is responsible, has determined to spend the rest of her life living as a hermit beside a monastery. In this scene, dressed as a youth, she comes to the monastery to beg for refuge, and the monks are heard chanting off stage as she prays to the merciful Madonna, Madre, pietosa, vergine. How long do you get to spend at a time back in Sweden?
Oh, it's not very long. It's not very long. This summer, last summer, I was very long. Except for a few concerts and gramophone recordings and so, I was almost there 2 months. And but that's very unusual. But I love the Swedish summer. I love the spring and the pre-summer, and it's absolutely marvelous. And the older one gets, the more one loves, you know, the things which one had when one was a child, and I enjoy it. So I'm very hard to convince to sing in the summer. I don't want to sing in any festivals or anything which would interfere too much with my vacation. I think I deserve it finally, don't you think so?
Do you consciously try to include folk songs from your native land?
Always.
Yes.
Always I sing Scandinavian songs. I sing not only folk songs, but I also sing other songs, but I sing very much folk songs, and they are very much appreciated.
Oh.
I would, and many people in America are asking for only those kinds of songs. They think that we have very, very nice songs from Scandinavian. Sometimes when I sing those recitals and when I include those folk songs, I take my fall costume with me. So when I sing those songs, I dress to my fall costume. It's a costume rather nice, you know, which we wear around the place where I'm born. It's a very, very small district, could I say that?
Yes.
And every district has their costumes. You know how old that costume is? Oh, I don't tell how old it is, but I can tell you I got that costume when I was 16. So, you
the
know...
same one? The very one, you mean?
The same one, yes. It had been laid out all over the place, and it is very tight, I tell you, but I still wear it.
It still fits?
Yes, more or less, let's face it.
I'm afraid you'll have to explain to us what the folk song you're going to sing is about.
Oh!
I fear many of the viewers are not as fluent in Swedish.
I feel very much connected with that song and with that girl who is speaking in those lines in the song. She's a farmer girl, and she says something like that. Why are we sitting all so quiet and nice? And are all those girls married? Are all those lips kissed who are walking around this table? And then she says, I'm a very hard working girl. I'm cutting sheep, I'm picking berries, I'm waving, and I do everything, and I'm not thinking about kissing somebody, and I will never marry, she says. Then finally she changes her mind and says, well, if I once marry, I will take you if you still are very young. It's a very cute song, and I like it very much.
Ring
set yourself, it's clear, very high standards, and it's also clear that you set very high standards, therefore, for the people you work with. Do you regard yourself as a temperamental of the staff?
Well, it depends, yes and no. If I compare myself to singers who are more temperamental, I think I'm rather easy to get along with. I know I have a very strong temperament, and I demand so much of myself when I'm working, and when I get people which, you know, don't care so much, and I know, you know, they're not on the same level or on the same way as I am, and I cannot get the same response, I get absolutely, then I can be very difficult and very, very, very upset. But it's because of the work, because I don't like people to work with people, conductors, singers, stage directors, who always in their back head try to bring through their egos, you know, because for my taste, you know, an artist who cannot forget themselves in the moment when they are creating art, they are no artists.
Irrespective of whether you are temperamental, you live in a world which is almost by definition temperamental and full of temperamental people. I'm not going to ask you about your fellow stars, obviously, but what about managements? How do you get on with them?
Oh, very good, mostly very good. Oh, yes. You know, it can always be some disagreement, you know, but I must say, I think all the managements I have been dealing with, very good. Mr. Bing, Sir Rudolph, as we say, we have had our disagreements, but, you know, I loved him tremendously much. I really did. I think he was a good boss. I also appreciated his sense of humor very much. Now, last spring, he had his farewell performance, and almost every singer was singing there. It was televised and recorded for gramophone and everything. And he called me up very early, I think 1.5 years before, and at least 1 year before, and he said if I could participate. I said, of course, by all means. So I came over for that. And so said, what do you want me to sing? I said at the time when he called me, oh, well, anything. And so I said, well, what about Final Sin, Salome? He said, oh, I love to. I said. So I said, you can have my head. You can have my head on the silver plate. So I said, oh, no. He wasn't Sir at that time. Oh, no, Mr. Bing. I said, it's not necessary. I have imagination. And so I didn't get his head. His real head. But believe it or not, when I finished the Salome at the farewell gala, in my dressing room, there a big head of Mr. Bing on a silver plate there was standing. And when I see that head, it is exactly like him, so fantastic. So I appreciated it very much, and he too, we took a lot of pictures, and he loved it even more than I think. So now I said, now Sir Rudolph, I'm starting to collect all the head of all the opera managers. I have only one so far.
There is one problem, though, isn't there, that very often these days a young singer makes a mark and is immediately in demand all over the world, and doesn't have time to do the long, patient study that is necessary. Now, in a sense, that happened to you, but then you went on and worked at it, as you say, all the time you spent in Stockholm and so on.
Yes.
This sometimes doesn't happen now, does it?
No, it doesn't happen, and that is I think that is the trouble. And I think, you know, it was a young singer who made her debut in Stockholm, singing Sieglinde in the same evening as I sang Brunhilde, and she was very promising and very musical, but she has never, you know, put her foot on stage, you know. There were, I think, 20 managers there, you know, hiring her. And she got an offer to sing from somebody, to sing Isolde in Bayreuth in 2 years, you know. What is this? You cannot develop, even if if the young singers are more gifted, are more talented, and learn quickly, you must be, you must mature, and you have. So that's terrible. As soon as there's a new voice coming up, every opera house is on them, and about all the managers who sells them, and they are the voice killers, really, together with the airplanes. Because, one day you can be in Berlin, and the other day you are in Buenos Aires, and the third day you are in New York. 50 years ago, or not even that, you had to go by ship, and you had good vacation, 10 days or 14 days or whatever it was, or 1 month, and you came rested and felt marvelously. And singers were more or less staying and singing in one house and not traveling. And this traveling really, takes very much out of you. About all now, change of climate, season even, if you go down to South America, they have spring when we have autumn, and I remember myself going, my first time in Buenos Aires, and our performances were postponed. So I sang 4 Isoldes in 5 days, and after that I flew back to Munich and made Amelia in Basketball on tape recording of that. And one was so tired one didn't even know one's name, So that's very, very hard with all those airplanes. One has to be. I always try to get a very long time in advance the dates of my performance, so I can rest before I come a few days, and so then the performance are spaced. At least I have 2 or preferable 3 days in between every performance. I don't mind to stay on a little bit longer, because after all, the public, they pay to get the very best, not the next best, and to you don't make anybody happy by performing with a poor voice and tired and hoarse and all those things.
You've talked about the way in which music, once thought very difficult or even unsingable, unplayable, is now no longer felt to be so. But and indeed Richard Strauss being a good example of this, and the best example in a sense is Salome, which was not only thought very difficult, but it was more than that, wasn't it? It caused a great scandal when it was first performed, because people said that it was decadent, almost that it was evil music.
Yeah.
Do you feel anything of that in it?
It is a horrible story, of course, and I remember the first time I sang it, and it was in Stockholm, 54. There was some people who went home and they just felt sick after the role, and I know a lot of people who does that, and it is a horrible role. But when one sings it and when one acts, one is so in it and one becomes the person, one doesn't feel, there's no any inhibitants in that way when one is on the stage. But I can very well understand the public, how they feel, and about all many years ago, it would have been awful. I would never consider singing that role if I wouldn't have been, talked into it. And that was Mr. Gentile, who so sadly died some time ago. He was only a stage director at that time in Stockholm, he was 54, and he wanted me for Salome, and I said, I have nothing whatsoever which would fit to Salome, because I felt every role had been, so far, a queen or a princess or something like that. Salome is also some sort of a princess, but she's in a quite other way, I was more static and all those things. I said, I just cannot do it. And he worked so hard with me, Mr. Gentile. He did every step and everything. So I became Salome finally. I really did, and it was thanks to him that he just got me into it, and I learned so extremely much, not only acting-wise from that role, also singing-wise, because up to that year, 54, my high notes were rather tight, but you have to loosen up your body and everything to do the dance and other things. So it really relaxed the body, so I got easier to get my high top notes, which I haven't had before. then I have done the role, you know, many other places in Munich and Vienna and La Scala and the Metropolitan and so forth, and added a few things. But still, I think I keep the conception of Ganteler's ideas about the role. It was marvelous to work with.
In Richard Strauss's Salome, based on Oscar Wilde's play, Salome has at last exacted from Herod the terrible price she has demanded for dancing before him, the head of John the Baptist. In this terrible apostrophe to the prophet's severed head, she exults that she has now kissed the lips that had scorned and reviled her, until Herod, revolted beyond endurance, orders the guards to kill her.
teuer. Deine Tochter, ich sage dir, sie ist ein Ungeheuer.
Meine Tochter hat nicht getan. Ich möchte jetzt hier bleiben.
Ha! Das ist meines Bruders Weib. Komm, ich will nicht an diesem Orte bleiben. Komm, sag ich dir. Sicher, es wird Schreckliches geschehen. Wir wollen uns im Palast verbergen. Glorias, ich fange an zu erzittern. Manasse, hier ist der Kahn! Und sie ist durch die Parken aus! Bleckt den Mund, bleckt die Sterne! Es wird Schreckliches geschehen! dieses Wahl